Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. One of Donald Trump's potential VP picks, Senator Tim Scott, how a new Trump administration would tackle trade, inflation, and why the GOP is laying low while Dems take the headlines.
When their house is on fire, let them figure it out. And right now, their house is on fire.
And speaking of the Democrats, CNBC's Emily Wilkins reports on the ongoing debate over President Biden staying in the election race.
Are Democrats going to try and put pressure on Hakeem Jeffries, on Chuck Schumer to say, hey, we have these concerns?
Plus, an update on Storm Beryl and beers that won't give you a hangover? Athletic Brewing co-founder Bill Shufelt on healthier drinking.
For 5,000 years, holding beer in their hands when they are socializing, when they're relaxing, when they're unwinding from their day. It signifies I'm with friends, I'm having a great meal, and very little that actually has a lot to do with the alcohol.
Cheers to Tuesday.
I'm drinking it and it's good, and it tastes like beer. Am I going to feel like I had?
It's July 9th, 2024, and Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Melissa Lee along with Joe Kernen. Becky and Andrew are off today. Nice to be with you, Joe.
Good to have you. As I just said, if I'm going to talk about at the top of the show, the most important things happening that people are going to want to hear about, you're burying the lead if you don't say that you're, in my view, you're burying the lead if
and
I
you
don't
know
say
what?
You're
America,
here.
Joe is being sincere, and I do appreciate that.
I am. It's always, it's like anything though, right? It's kind of like a hybrid.
Right, exactly. There's a little bit of
it's laced
with sarcasm.
It's like 90-10 though, if
right,
it is.
yeah.
It's like 90-10.
I'll take that.
Okay.
I'll take that for sure.
And an update on Hurricane Beryl, now classified as a tropical depression. It unleashed a barrage of severe weather in southeast Texas yesterday, killing at least 4 people. The storm flooded highways, closed oil ports, and canceled more than 1,300 flights, knocked out power to more than 2.7 million homes and businesses. In Galveston, the mayor warned it could be 2 weeks before some people get the power back. The storm's now expected to bring heavy rainfall, flash flooding from the lower and mid-Mississippi Valley all the way up to the Great Lakes today and into tomorrow, but a lot of its strength was taken out before it hit the mainland here.
Yep.
It is a Category 1. Hurricanes in Galveston. It was between Corpus Christi and Galveston where it hit. 1900, the Galveston, and it wasn't, we have no name for it. It was the 1900s.
Right.
12,000 people died. 12,000.
12,000.
And they didn't, their estimates are 8 to 12, but people think it's at least 10 and probably closer to 12,000 people. And I guess it had gone over Cuba, so there was some idea of what was coming, but no satellites or anything.
Right.
So you're down there and you're like,
what's that?
man, that is a dark sky. You have no idea how wicked this way
Makes you
comes.
appreciate all the warnings we can.
It does. But it also, now we name them, and I mean, this is a Category 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's July. This is what happens. There's been none in the North Atlantic, so you know, I was in Camille in, I think, 1969. I know, you were a glimmer in your grandparents' eyes at that point, I think, right? But I was down in Florida. I remember being scared quite a bit, you know, being in Florida and then windows going. Yeah. But now they're named, and I mean, think of the names and how Katrina. I mean, when you hear Katrina, it strikes terror. And Camille, still to me, is scary. Mm-hmm. But
I just said Camille.
Camille, yeah, I jump. I jump if you say that. I do.
A new weapon.
Yeah.
Overnight, the White House responding to news reports that a Parkinson's disease expert visited the White House at least 8 times over an 8-month period. In a letter, White House physician Kevin O'Connor confirmed that the expert, Dr. Kevin Kennard, was a neurological specialist who examined President Biden for each of his annual visits. But he said that President Biden had not seen a neurologist outside his annual physicals. Dr. O'Connor said President Biden's last physical was in February, and he did not show any signs of any neurological disorder, including Parkinson's. In the letter, he says Dr. Kennard has been the neurology consultant to the White House Medical Unit since 2012 and has held clinics for the thousands of active duty military members assigned in support of White House operations.
Yep, that's what the press secretary was emphasizing yesterday.
Right.
There's a lot of people he could be coming.
Right.
The president, I can tell you, has seen a neurologist 3 times, as it's connected to the to a physical that he gets every year that we provide to all of them.
Then, and I don't even want to delve into, I know not a neurologist, don't play one on TV, but there are some people that say that Parkinson's can be less severe or slower moving than some type of dementia. I forget what, there's a specific kind of dementia that just a lot of people get, because it's like, it's called dementia, but it's like getting old. You know what I mean? It's like your kidneys, your liver, your heart, everything gets old, and it's not surprising that your synapses would get that way. But I don't know if Parkinson's would be much worse, or, I don't know what to hope for the president at this point. In terms of what he's slowed, there's no doubt. You can see it, that he has slowed down. Last couple of days, he's sort of been, I think, kind of like the Joe Biden. He hasn't been any worse than the Joe Biden that got 80% or 90% of the primary votes. Mm-hmm. Same guy that 39, I don't know how many people voted for him to make him the presumptive candidate. But he's not really any different than who they were voting for. That's why it's confusing to me that now the people in charge look at the polls, the elitists that are in charge of the Democratic Party, now look at the polls. It's like, oh, hold on a second. We knew this all along, but now...
Well, I guess the debate really underscored
it did.
Everyone's
I was watching
fears.
Jake Tapper today, and Jake I love Jake. Jake was talking about the elitists were ignoring... I'm like, not a hint of irony in you talking about how the elitists were ignoring what was going on. And I commend... those two, Dana Bash and him, because they conducted the debate that has us all. Right. At least it shined a light on what we're talking about here. I'm going to talk to you about what they should do. I don't know. I'm not going to. They got to decide themselves. AOC came out and said,
Biden has decided. He has decided. And that is the way. Unless there's going to be no change in him being at the top of the table.
I saw Robert Wolf on yesterday, and there are people, even donors, that are saying, "Look, I'm with Biden." The alternative might not be so great.
What do donors donate for? Influence.
Right.
And
exactly.
So if you're going to donate and then say he's unfit, where does that get you? And he ends up in the White House
complicated,
anyway.
Isn't
right.
it?
It's very complicated.
And some people say that Mar-a-Lago, that Karl Rove said Mar-a-Lago, that there's cheers being heard coming out of Mar-a-Lago. But, Karl Rove doesn't want Trump. He's one of the biggest Bush loyalists, never-Trumpers on the planet.
Joining us now on The Buzz from D.C., among Democratic lawmakers, Emily Wilkins has the very latest for us. Emily.
Hey, Melissa. Well, yeah, Biden, he's, like you guys have said, he started the week vowing to stay in the race. But Democrats I spoke with last night have made it clear that Biden still needs to prove to them that he can win in November. Now, again, we know of at least 9 Democrats who have said that Biden should withdraw, but many more are raising concerns. And those are going to be aired today when House and Senate Democrats huddle for the first time since the debate. Congressman Scott Peters of California told me yesterday that Biden needs to accept that what happened at the debate wasn't a blip, but a real problem.
We heard we had about 300 and some constituent contacts from voters and constituents, 10-1, suggesting that the president should step aside.
Senator John Tester, who has one of the most difficult races for any Democrat in November, said yesterday that Biden, quote, has got to prove to the American people, including me, that he's up to the job for another 4 years. Now, while the concerns are real, there are dozens of other members who have defended Biden and say they're sticking with him, like many members of the Congressional Black Caucus who had a virtual meeting last night with Biden, or the Hispanic Caucus who put out a statement last night saying that they stand with Biden and Harris. Lawmakers told me that a lot is going to be decided this week, and we'll be keeping a close eye on what happens in those meetings. And guys, we're going to be keeping a close eye on how what happens in those meetings translates to any potential pressure on Biden.
Yeah. John Tester, I don't know. I guess I was going to say he should focus on his own future, but that is what he's doing. It's exactly what he's doing. And a lot of down ballot hand-wringing is what's going on here. The other ones, it's like Jerry Nadler's the most high-profile guy of the other 10. There are no huge names. Mark Warner, but then he backed off a little bit. We'll see whether that still continues. But the leaders of the party have not done anything yet.
That's the question, Joe. I mean, the question is that are Democrats going to try and put pressure on Hakeem Jeffries, on Chuck Schumer to say, hey, we have these concerns and we need you guys to come
Chuck
out.
said
So
I'm with Joe.
that's one of the big things that we're looking to see.
Chuck said I'm with Joe. He flipped the burger and then went, oh no, the cheese is but he flipped the burger and said I'm with Joe yesterday. Didn't he?
Yeah, no, he has. And I think that kind of reflects the fact, I mean, you saw Jeffries say it as well. I think the question that we have is that as they hear from more and more and more of their members, does that tone shift at all? Does it change at all? Do they start having more private conversations with Biden? I mean, I think there is a lot of questions at this point of exactly how far Biden can continue if you have other prominent elected Democrats in his party who aren't behind him. And I think at this point, things could go either way. You could see Biden stay. You could see Schumer and Jeffries continue to support him. But members who I talked with yesterday, they just kept emphasizing, we need to talk today. We need to get together. We need to basically do a vibe check, see where everyone's at and how to best move forward.
Well, that was the Carville quote. If things that can't continue don't. And that seems to be what's happening. But then again, I definitely have some empathy for what President Biden is saying. And it just, the Democrats that now want to pull the rug out from under them, they knew. They've been gaslighting for so long. They knew full well what was going on as he was racking up all those delegates, which he did. He got, what percentage of people voted for him for the nomination? You think he's really changed in an hour and a half on, they knew. So now they're like, oh my God, where did this, so that's why I said they're getting exactly what they deserve. But it's kind of, not schadenfreude, maybe a little epicaricacy, watching them squirm. And the squirming will continue, Emily, and you'll be reporting on it. Thank you.
Starting Monday, Target stores will no longer accept personal checks as a form of payment. The retail giant said it was committed to creating an easy and convenient checkout experience, and it was making the move because of extremely low volumes of customers who paid by check. Rival Walmart will still continue to accept checks.
Wow, that's amazing.
I hardly ever write any checks.
No,
everything's automatic payment.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else writes them. Boy, does she write. Boy, does she. No.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, Republican Senator Tim Scott, ahead of Fed Chair Jay Powell's testimony to the Banking Committee. We'll talk to him about being on a VP shortlist and the Trump tariff threat.
Can we have a fair process of trade while being a free trade nation? I think the answer is yes. How do you do that? You do that by pushing back on those bad actors around the globe.
You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernen and Melissa Lee.
Stand by, Joe, in 3, 2, 1. His mic, cue.
Fed Chair Jay Powell set to testify in front of the Senate Banking Committee. Join us now to talk about what's on the agenda and also the presidential race. South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott. I hope you had some coffee, Senator. Hopefully he's a ranking member on the Banking Committee. And his name, you obviously have heard this, been floated as a potential VP pick for Donald Trump. There's nothing you could do that would get you more high-profile attention than being on Squawk Pod, Senator. So this is smart. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks you very much. Thanks for joining us again.
Well, thanks for helping me with my getting
you're
attention
welcome.
on Squawk Pod.
Anything we can.
Powerful show. I watch as a business guy. So thank you.
Right. Anything we can do. Just all you got to do is call. So he's going to come on. It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that he's going to probably cut rates in September. Is that too late to actually help whomever the and we'll talk about that, but whether it's President Biden or whoever the nominee is, rates seem like they're going to come down right before the election.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Joe Biden broke this economy, and Jay Powell's trying to figure out how to fix the economy. Listen, over the last 3.5 years, what we've seen is a loss of spending power by the average American around $28,000. Rate cuts will be helpful, but the fact of the matter is that doing it in September looks pretty political. I had a conversation with Jay Powell yesterday, and one of the things I left with is that he sees inflation coming down, so the prospect of rate cuts, I think, are going up. But the bottom line is this: if you do it in September and not in July, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations around the political nature of rate cuts. More importantly, though, we have to figure out how to keep this economy thriving for the first-time home buyers. How do we keep single moms like the one that raised me being able to afford buying food 30% higher, putting gas in the car about 45 to 50% higher? Those are the issues that I will talk to Jay Powell about as we have a hearing in about an hour.
Yep, and I was having that conversation just yesterday with my son. Actually, he's like, "Well, the economy, blah blah," and I go, "Scotty, oh, his name's Scott, Senator Scott. Scotty, if you have less money every 2 weeks at the end of your paycheck, and you're a mother, and you're saying, no, I'm sorry, we're not getting that this time," or yes, if you're waiting for a paycheck and you have less every couple of weeks than you had before, it's just that simple. There's just no way to dress that up. There's not enough lipstick to put on that to help people.
100%. Listen, we went 52 paychecks in a row where inflation outpaced wage growth. Recovering from that is a long-term prospect. The challenge, of course, is baked into our economy today is significantly higher prices for everything everyday Americans have to afford. Whether it's housing, you're buying a house or renting a house. Whether it's groceries, you're making decisions in the line about what can you keep in your basket, or gas, energy for your homes. But those prices are fixed into, and they're significantly higher than they were just 4 years ago.
But not all the blame goes to obviously the Biden administration. It's a global issue following the pandemic. Some of the energy things, I would grant you that some of those executive orders haven't helped.
I'd encourage us to look back at the first decision that Joe Biden made, which was to pass a $1.9 trillion spending package with only, called a COVID relief package, only 1% for vaccines, less than 10% for COVID-related health. The $1.7 trillion went to fueling the type of economy and inflation that we have today, which led to a 9% inflation, I think it was June or July in 2021. We haven't recovered from that because Joe Biden doesn't have a clue on how to fix this economy. He thinks that government is the answer. We know that the free markets and capitalism is actually the answer to creating jobs, not the government.
Will you press Chairman Powell on just getting in the weeds here on Basel III and in the end game proposal? What are you getting anywhere with him?
Yeah, I think we have made significant progress over the last several months on Basel III endgame. The bottom line is simply this: parking more capital on the sidelines makes it even more difficult in a challenging environment to have your first-time home buyers have access to capital for small businesses to start their businesses. So having that conversation about a re-proposal, I'm encouraged by the signs that we're seeing that there's a strong possibility that we're going to see a re-proposal put back to the market, having an open period of comment once again. I hope they take their time and get this right. This is a significant impact on the health of our economy. And if Jay Powell and the other powers that be are wise, they will take the time to hear from the public, the stakeholders, and then recalibrate even that approach in this final proposal that goes through the APA.
Senator Scott, I appreciate the awareness of what the average American is going through in terms of dealing with inflation and having to make really hard choices. But there are certain things that are sort of built into the economy at this point and are being proposed that are inflationary in and of itself. Nearshoring is increasing costs of goods or will increase costs of goods. And the tariffs that President Trump is proposing, 60% on Chinese imports, 10% on all U.S. imports. I mean, while these are proposals, may never actually come to fruition, that's the direction that President Trump would like to go in. Those tariffs would be inflationary as well. How do you reconcile wanting to reduce inflation, ease the burden on average Americans, but also being in the party that is proposing all these tariffs, which would add costs to consumers?
Well, let's not forget the fact that while President Trump did a very good job of pushing back on China, what President Biden has done is kept those same tariffs in place. So the question and conversation around tariffs is one that bleeds into this administration. The real question we should ask is, can we have a fair process of trade while being a free trade nation? I think the answer is yes. How do you do that? You do that by pushing back on those bad actors around the globe that continue to manipulate, whether it's their currency, whether it's stealing our IP. We need to make sure that we have in place the kind of headwinds that makes it more difficult for countries like China to lie, cheat, and steal. I think that is what President Trump has done, and frankly, it's one of the reasons why President Biden has not eliminated tariffs.
Senator, we alluded to when I said, I don't know, actually I was talking to Kyle Bass about it. I said, he said the incumbents have been getting voted out in the UK, France, et cetera, and it could happen here. And I go, well, which incumbent are we talking about getting voted out here? Do you know which incumbent that you're trying to get voted out in the United States? You know who that incumbent is?
Well, we know that the Democrats, they are in a hot mess, as we say it back in South Carolina right now. There's no doubt. But listen, it doesn't matter what they call the person, whether it's Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. The bottom line is it's the incompetence of this administration, not Joe Biden's mental acuity, that is in question.
Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference of who to face?
They have to solve the multi-100 million plus problem by replacing Joe Biden. Frankly, I think the American people and the day of reckoning is coming on November the 5th. I don't care whether it's Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They both have been the same powers that be that's led to a wide open southern border, leading to 10 million illegal immigrants coming into our country. They've led to the highest inflation since the Jimmy Carter years. And frankly, crime in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, poor inner city neighborhoods, has never been worse, at least in my lifetime.
You know, one of the things that I saw the president and his people talking about yesterday was since the debate, the president's been all over the place. And he said, where the heck has Donald Trump been? And I think I have a pretty good idea that maybe laying in the weeds after that was the right move.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do. There's no doubt about it. Listen, when their house is on fire,
right,
let them figure it out. And right now, their house is on fire.
I don't know what to ask you about the Veep position. We'll know soon enough, I think.
I think you're right.
At the beginning of the convention, you think? Or when do you expect to hear?
You know, I think it would be an honor to serve as Vice President of the United States for anyone who actually gets that opportunity. Bottom line is, I think we'll know something in the next 10 days. But more importantly, it's not the who he chooses, it's what the focus of his administration will be. It has to be looking back at the glory years where inflation was 1.4% or 1.5%. As opposed to the 9% that we've seen under Joe Biden. We have to go back to the glory years where illegal immigration was about 1,000 per day in December 2020 versus 10,000 per month, per day, during December 2023. So when we look at the glory days, we know that the person who will be leading the ticket is Donald J. Trump. And the best we can offer to the American people is getting the same economy we had in 2017 back in 2025.
I don't know. On Squawk Box with the Capitol, right? Have you seen this shot behind you? I mean, I
can't see the shot. No.
Well, it's a nice shot, and I just saw Scott like leapfrogging over some of those. Did you see that? Could you feel that, him leapfrogging over some of those other?
No comment.
No comment. I didn't really see that, Senator, but I was imagining it. But no,
keep hope alive.
Will you call us if you find out before everybody else or something? Can you?
You know, you'll be on my top 5, Joe.
I think that was sarcastic, but
I think it was.
Just being facetious.
Yeah. All right, Senator. Thanks once again. Good to have you on again.
Have a great day. Take care.
Okay.
Up next on Squawk Pod, cheers to skipping alcohol. The rise of non-alcoholic beers with the #1 brand that brews it, Athletic Brewing CEO Bill Shufelt. Why the cultural moment is just right for the sometimes sober.
It was, steak dinners, boozy, drenched dinners. and I would feel terrible. And I saw a real shift in the 10 years I was in finance to like people being really excited instead to do like Soul Cycles or Barry's boot camps.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod.
When you're watching Squawk Box on CNBC, I'm Joe Kernen along with Melissa Lee. New this morning, non-alcoholic beer company Athletic Brewing announcing it's raised a $50 million equity financing round led by General Atlantic. And joining us now, coincidentally, his name is Bill Shufelt, and I asked you that question right away, founder and CEO of Athletic Brewing. And I asked you initially, is everyone a friend of Bill W? And by that I mean someone that really would get in trouble if they had any alcohol. And some are, I would imagine, but many are not people that are drinking non-athletic beer for that reason, non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, I think actually in general, I think the word sober is somewhat outdated in many ways, where I think people are just super busy, modern adults. We all have phones in our hands. We want to feel a little bit better. We want to be a little more alert. People tend to drink like one day a week, one day a month, but there's a lot of occasions outside of that. And a delicious beer goes great with a lot of different parts of life. So
you're here to talk about a nice fundraising round. Let's get that out of the way, and then we'll talk about some of the implications, because I have a lot of thoughts.
For sure, yeah.
So what happened?
So we announced a big investment. We increased our West Coast production capacity and announced that a couple weeks ago. But kind of in conjunction with this, we're welcoming General Atlantic to our cap table. $50 million equity financing to the company, and they'll ultimately invest significantly beyond that in the round. But on anyone, if you ask anyone in the financial world, a short list of globally respected investors, General Atlantic's usually in the top 3, and so we're super excited to have them on board. And just their perspective and advisory on like scalable, disruptive companies is just such an honor to be having their investment.
Where's your valuation go to with this round?
Yeah, well, we're a private company, and we don't tend to talk about valuation. I can say that our revenue has more than doubled since our Series D about 18 months ago, and it was publicly disclosed at that time that our valuation was about $400 million. So.
You went from 855 cases to hundreds of thousands of cases per year. You're in IPA, you're one of the 10 largest brewers, and it's non-alcoholic, right?
Yeah, we sold well over 3 million cases last year, or over 100 million cans. Did over 90 million in revenue last year as a company, and are growing well beyond that this year. We're a top 20 brewer overall, top 10 in craft beer out of over 10,000 craft brewers. From one of the smallest just a few years ago.
Bill, I'm drinking it, and it's good, and it tastes like beer. Am I going to feel like and I'm starting to think maybe that there's some type of placebo effect. Is there not, or is there's not, right? I mean, you really aren't, there's no alcohol, so it's impossible that you're feeling anything.
Well, I think what you are feeling is the placebo effect. People have been drinking for 5,000 years, holding beer in their hands when they are socializing, when they're relaxing, when they're unwinding from their day. It signifies I'm with friends, I'm having a great meal. And very little that actually has a lot to do with the alcohol. And that was kind of a key insight for me. And as I was doing survey work for Athletic Brewing, as you know, I was in the financial world previously. And when I started to share the germ of this idea with people were just like, that makes sense. I would drink that all the time. I'm sick of alcohol, or like, I would like to be drinking a lot more, but alcohol holds back the occasions.
Why is the time right now for non-alcoholic beer, as opposed to in the past where you had like an O'Doul's, which sort of just
because it tasted like swamp water.
Okay, well that's one reason.
That was because I was going to say it. On The Simpsons, they would have the non-alcoholic in the convenience store. And the guy would walk back, and it would be a false front. No one ever opened the door before. It would be a place to go where you go into the back of the store, because no one ever checked to buy any of the non-alcoholic beer.
But I think people are mentally, they want alternatives as opposed to before.
And he'd say it was high performance. So you're working out at 6 in the morning. If you go out with your like in the financial business and you have 5 or 6 beers, you're not feeling good at 6 in the morning to work out, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I was up listening to your show and at the desk at 6 a.m. for 12 years and out to 3 or 4 work dinners a week. And in the beginning of that career, it was, steak dinners, boozy, drenched dinners, and I would feel terrible. And I saw a real shift in the 10 years I was in finance to like people being really excited instead to do like Soul Cycles or Barry's boot camps and hit the day running. I think a big part of our reinvention is it's both product and marketing. So our co-founder, John Walker, is an extremely talented and highly awarded brewer who had won every...
Johnny Walker?
Yeah, which was one of those like universal signs that was so obvious, like it should have hit me over the head that he's the right guy. But he is so talented, and so are so many of our teammates. And another big differentiator is, which this investment's going to, is we've invested over $100 million in our manufacturing, which is really differentiated quality that this segment had never seen before.
It's amazing. And I ask you, I like play golf, okay, something like that, hot. So that I do like to drink like a Corona or something, and I like, there is a little bit of a feeling. I could drink one, but if I hang out, I could switch to this, couldn't I? So that I don't get, so I'm not like driving after 3 or 4 beers. You could drink one alcoholic beer and switch to this, couldn't you? Because I just realized I'm drinking this. I'm like Brett Kavanaugh. I like beer. Remember when he said, I like beer, even though it's
almost
not.
Like anything you're doing in your day-to-day life, like we've got a beer for that occasion. And what you're doing now, like that afternoon beer on a stressful day, like I drink an IPA at like 4 in the afternoon. And
non-alcoholic.
And it's amazing. Or golf courses crush it for us, where people may have had 1 beer during the round, they may have 5, and it's super refreshing. They can get in the car after, they can go meet their kids at the pool. And
right.
Yeah, there's not that like line in the sand.
Takes away all the bad quality, because there's plenty. And then the one other thing I'll mention, earlier this week, it used to be maybe 1 glass of red wine is good for you. Now they're starting to think that alcohol is just in general. It could be 1 glass, could be 5. It's never really great for you because your liver's dealing and your brain and everything else. And when you get older, it gets much more difficult to process the alcohol, I think.
Yeah, so I think whatever people's views are on health and alcohol, the world is stressful. I don't want to take away people's alcohol, but like 10 years ago, there were no options. If you weren't drinking and you were at a work dinner,
you'd like drinking
social,
a seltzer water, yeah.
Like, so we just want to have great options, and I think it's all about occasion growth, where maybe the occasion base for alcohol is shrinking, but we want to build that back up, welcome a lot of new people into the beer world, and give people great beer they can drink 7 nights a week and feel really good about it.
It's amazing. Yeah, I like it, and it's good. But was it really bad? The previous intro of alcohol, of non-alcoholic beer, was it crappy beer? Was it Swamp? Was it bad?
It's so
was
rare.
It? I mean, because
like walk around a grocery store.
I never had one.
It was when I stopped drinking 10 years ago. It was so weird to see a part of the grocery store that had seen absolutely no evolution in 30 years, and it was like. It's like athletic brewing is such a simple concept, just hiding in plain sight, and just trying to be really positive about it.
Like I would have thought that if I'm going to get the calories and the carbs from drinking a beer, I might as well have some alcohol. But now I'm starting to rethink all that.
Well, alcohol,
because you got to drink something when you're socializing, and it'd be good if it didn't.
Is a lot of the calories
and
in beer.
It's the calories.
Generally, as a rule of thumb, like 20 calories per 1% ABV.
Oh my God. Good luck, Bill. Thank you. And you've been watching since when? Since I was a young person?
Yeah, huge fan of the show. I entered Wall Street in 2005, and I listened to you guys on my commute at the desk all day, so I appreciate it.
A lot of people say that. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And good luck.
Thank you so much.
And that's Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Thanks to Melissa Lee for sitting in. She will be back with Joe tomorrow. And we hope you tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern, stream live on Peacock, or listen to the best of our show anytime you want when you follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. That's it. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.